Thank all of you for being here today. We really had no idea when we began this journey how potentially historic this was going to be. We understood with Jonathan that it was historic to define the difference between what has become in the Western world considered environmental philosophy from what was indigenous environmental philosophy. We understood the differences really were rooted in the fact that in indigenous environmental philosophy there was very little distinction between the individual and the rest of the world. That they saw the nature and other people as literally their brothers and sisters on equal par and deserving of equal respect. What has transpired now is something that's truly historic and really is owed to Jonathan Hook, whose vision this originally was, and to each one of these individuals who participate in this dialogue, because for each one of them, they gave of their heart, their mind, and they stood up for not only themselves, but for their entire generations that had come before them.
The idea was presented to hold a summit, a meeting, to invite indigenous environmental philosophers, people who were deeply involved in their own cultures, as well as involved in protecting the environment. Invite them to come here, not representing organizations, not representing governments, but simply to represent themselves as individuals from indigenous communities around the world, to share their thoughts, to share their stories about their own experiences in their communities, and to have a chance to build relationships and develop communication with this group of people. We need something that illustrates our beliefs, that in some way tries to identify what it is that we share as far as perceptions of the environment and protection of the environment and the importance of that. And I don't know many meetings where we have people coming from 22 different indigenous nations, 17 different countries, that come together and are able to come up with an agreement. The amazing thing is that by the end of our time together, every single person is going to sign it today. It's the first time ever we've had a gathering of indigenous environmental philosophers, and for this group to be able to come to consensus, unanimous consensus, on a powerful statement is something that we couldn't do as humans. Clearly there's something much higher and much greater that is acting other than the human beings that were in those discussions. And so today we want to share that with you. We want you to participate with us in the historic signing by these 22 delegates of this document.
International Summit on Indigenous Environmental Philosophy, 2010. Redstone Statement, May the 1st, 2010. Leave us a future. We are indigenous environmental philosophers who have come from the four corners of the earth to Redstone, Oklahoma, to discuss the future of the planet. Indigenous environmental philosophy respects a mutually supportive network of interconnected physical and spiritual entities that is sustainably maintained and which connects the ancestral past with the distant future. The vision of our indigenous peoples is to reach spiritual and material well-being through conscious action. Mother Earth is a living, dynamic being with inherent value, and her principles must be actively embodied in order to remain in harmony and balance. Today we are at a tipping point at which humanity is in danger of being removed from the cycles of Mother Earth. We bring this urgent message in response to indigenous women, youth, and children from around the world who have consistently asked us to leave them a more balanced planet. We come as individuals from cultures whose authority originates from our unique relationships with nature and the environment. Our ways of living and very existence are threatened by the resistance of nation-states to include our institutions as a part of the solutions that can save our planet. Consequently, we issue this call to the world. Environmental, social, economic, and political conflicts over natural resources and access rights, climate change concerns, and other significant issues threatening international and local communities did not suddenly erupt on the global landscape. Rather, they are the outcome of the historical process that today affects every area of creation. Spiritual, cultural, social, economic, and political structures and values lost their connections to the communities and now focus exclusively on the individual. The world shifted from the circle of community to the ascendancy of the individual, resulting in a dangerous environmental imbalance with significant spiritual and health consequences. Balance must be restored in order to heal the earth, and it must include the participation of all ages, races, genders, and cultures. Effective mechanisms necessary for restoring balance include implementing the following. First, recognition of the interdependence of all things. Second, indigenous self-determination. Third, indigenous land, air, water, territory, and natural resource management. Fourth, protection and preservation of indigenous traditional knowledge, lifeways and languages, cultures, sacred sites, and folklore's oral traditions. Fifth, indigenous authority over all actions impacting indigenous communities. Sixth, respect for and protection of traditional agricultures and genetic resources. Seventh, seed sovereignty and food security. Eighth, rights of movement, rights of access, rights of participation and communication in the exchange of environmental knowledge and culture. We must assure the well-being of both humanity and nature. This requires a unification of diverse people who are open to ideas, people who are wise, clear, and profoundly human, and people who can transcend the self-imposed limits of their minds, reaching deep into their conscience and spirit for solutions. All governments, communities, leaders, individuals, industries, and corporations must immediately act together to restore the balance that is essential for continued existence. We call for a review of existing commercial practices and an end to any further non-sustainable exploitation and degradation of natural resources for all generations to come. We also call for a portion of profits to be invested in the development of renewable energy resources.
We, as Indigenous environmental philosophers, breathe life into this statement and commit to implementing the provisions contained in it. We'll call up each of the delegates one by one so that they can place their signature on this document.
Da Kai